Joel Lambert. Now, this man has lived through some situations that most of us won't, and most of us can't even fathom. Joel is a former Navy SEAL. He's a survival strategist and an escape and evasion expert. Joel mastered the art of thriving under pressure, and he's been in some of the most dangerous places on earth. But what sets him apart isn't just his physical training, it's his mindset. And that's what we're diving into, what it really means to develop mental resilience, how fear can be transformed into focus, and what his SEAL expertise can teach all of us about handling life's toughest challenges. And trust me, this is a conversation that is really packed with insight that will change the way you think about survival. It'll change the way you think about success and pushing through adversity. And we all have to face with that. So, Joel, thank you for being here and taking time to talk to me today.
Dr. Phil, thanks for having me on. I'm a fan. I'm very excited to be here.
I don't know what percent of people that are in the armed services go through the Navy SEAL training and survive and succeed, but it's damn few. Fair to say?
Oh, yes. It's minuscule, in fact. The screening process, just to get to the screening process, is very intense. And then once you get there, then 80% of those people are going to quit, fail, and some of them die.
Those that make it through obviously have a unique quality about them and a unique mindset in order to get through. And you've kind of specialized within the Navy SEAL population and certainly in the years since then, and have developed, I think it's safe to say, an unmatched expertise in escape and evasion, home defense, personal resilience, and strategic planning in high-pressure environments. And I want to talk about that a little bit. You have created a Navy SEALs bug-in guide, and I'm going to let you define that for people. What is a bug-in guide? I know because I've been immersed in this now for a while, but tell people what you mean by a bug-in guide.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're immersing yourself in the curriculum. Well, I did this television show. After I got out of the military, I did a television show on Discovery Channel for a lot of years called Manhunt. It was called Lone Target here in the U.S. And I would insert in foreign countries. I would skydive in places I wasn't supposed to be. I would ride across borders under trucks. I would infiltrate different countries and then would ping them and let them know I was there. And then their Special Operations Force, Fugitive Recovery Team, or Specialty Tracking Unit would use all their assets at their disposal, dogs, thermal imaging, SWAT teams, native trackers, whatever they had to try to track me down and capture me before I made it to my extract point 2 to 4 days away. And I'd be doing booby traps, anti-tracking, counter-tracking, deception trails, whatever I could do to try to get away. And so about the same time, in the intersection of what the public finds cool in military tactics and techniques and procedures, everyone was getting really into bugging out. What's in your bug out bag? And you have a bug out bag by your door so you can grab it and get out of your house if something goes wrong. It was a big thing. And they were always asking me, since this is kind of what I was doing at a very high level on TV, what's in my bug out bag? And what are my essentials for bugging out? And do I want to put my name, brand, a bug out bag? And I would always say, look, bugging out, this is the option you use when everything that could possibly go wrong has, and there's nothing else for you to do but just run. Because everything that you need in a survival situation, shelter, water, food, communication, and navigation, those are the big five, in my opinion. You have all those things right at your house. Why would I want to abandon all those things at the slightest hint of trouble and go run someplace where I'm going to have to reset and reestablish those survival minimums? So what I said is bugging in, creating a safe place in your house where you have everything you need in case the world goes crazy over toilet paper or, protesting something, or World War III or Ukraine or whatever happens to come down. It's a crazy time that we're in right now. I want to have my house safe for my family, for my loved ones, for myself, where I'm able to have all the things I need at my disposal, and I don't have to leave my house if I don't need to. And then if I do need to bug out, if I need to run away, I can always run away. But I want to have a home base, a tactical operations center where everything I need, my weapons, my tools, my food, my water, all the things I need are right here. And I want to be set up for that. So I wrote my book, The Navy SEALs Bug-In Guide. Cover all the essentials.
Give us the big five again. You said the big five that you need.
The big five. Well, there's three essentials, and those are shelter, water, food, and those are for survival. So in that order, you need to, and when I say shelter, shelter is anything that protects your physical body from the elements. So your clothing, a house, of course, a tent, a fire is shelter. Anything that protects your body from the elements. Water is the next most important thing. I can survive 3 hours without shelter in an inclement situation. I can survive 3 days without water. So water is the next thing on my list. And then food, I can survive 3 weeks without that. So there's my order of precedence of the things I have to establish. And then when I'm in a bugging out or a survival situation, I'm also going to need to navigate. I'm going to need to figure out where I'm at a bare minimum and where I need to go and how to get there. And then communication. How do I communicate? How do I signal? That could be a signal fire. It could be your cell phone. It could be a radio, anything that's allowing you to communicate with friendlies in the area.
There are a lot of people right now that think this would be a very extreme situation, but I have a home in California, and we just had massive fires out there, and there were winds 70 miles an hour, blowing embers, sometimes 10, 15 miles from where they originated and starting fires. It really was like a war zone out there. There was no communication. The fire department couldn't get where they needed to go. They'd open up a fire hydrant and it would just drip. There was nothing there. Cell towers were down. You couldn't get in touch with anybody. We saw that happen right in LA, in an area the size of Manhattan Island. I've talked to people regarding the border and people coming across into this country right now. If somebody attacks our energy grid, for example, which I think is very vulnerable,
very likely as well,
particularly if there was a coordinated attack on our energy grid, we could be in a really tough situation where we didn't have communication. We didn't have power to our houses. We didn't have the ability to get food, medication, our water supply. We could be in that situation a lot quicker than people might think. Is that an overstatement?
No, that's a very astute observation. And people don't realize how vulnerable the energy grid is. What you brought up, that's a big one, because any kind of it doesn't even need to be a coordinated attack. It doesn't even need to be a state actor. Some rogue actors, taking direction from whomever across the border, just like you mentioned, could very easily take out large swaths of our power. And people don't realize how dependent. They're like, oh, it's okay, I can't charge my phone or watch TV. Well, what you don't think of is that big pumping station down the street that makes sure that the water comes out of your faucet and is clean, runs on electricity. And if the grid goes down, all of a sudden you're going to turn on your faucet and nothing's going to happen.
A lot of people, we get to taking it for granted and literally think water does come out of the faucet, electricity comes out of the wall. But that's not true. I mean, there's a whole infrastructure that brings that to us. And it is vulnerable, and we could be in a situation where we need exactly what you're talking about. How did you get so fascinated with all of this?
Well, my whole life I've kind of been into all this stuff. And then, of course, I ended up in the SEAL teams, which is a really good starting place to develop the mindset, which you alluded to earlier. The mindset is the most important thing. Mindset is everything. And that developed my mindset to start looking at things through that Navy SEAL lens. I did a lot of what's called SEER, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape in the military. And this is mainly geared towards air crew and people who don't have a lot of skill on the ground. So if they got shot down and they're behind enemy lines somehow and we got to come get them, that person needs to survive. That person needs to navigate to their next pickup point, and that person needs to be able to communicate with friendlies and not get caught from the bad guys. And so I went to a lot of those schools, and through that I started getting my brain started getting turned on to all the survival, all the primitive skills, all the stuff that you pretty much saw in the Rambo, First Blood. That's kind of the school that I went to. And I went to a lot of those, and it just started kind of settling in. And I got fascinated with all the different skill sets, not just survival, but mindset, navigation, primitive skills, all the hunting traps that indigenous peoples have used throughout history. If you scale those up to man size, that's Rambo. That's First Blood right there. All these things I wanted to know, and tracking, counter-tracking, all these fascinating skills that humans, by and large, in the West, because of our dependence on the water coming out of the faucet and electricity coming out of the wall, we just don't see them as necessary anymore. We're back to even our grandparents' time. They had all this stuff locked down. And I think that's a tragedy, not just for, in potential, extremist situations, but also just in life. We're not connected to the people. We're not connected to the ground. We're not connected to the animals. We're not connected to where our food comes from. And I think that's a tragedy.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. My network, Merit TV, has it all.
Now, let me blow your mind.
Merit TV's got the news that matters.
The selection of a new pope.
Entertainment you crave.
Busted.
Everybody in a good mood today?
And live events.
Surprise.
What am I, chopped liver?
With serious punch.
Big shot.
Go to merittv.com and download the Merit TV app today.